Oh, this is the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I heard
Thank you.
already. Yeah.
Nasty. It's never been this early before.
And it's not even that warm out.
Just like last year, it was like 15 foot down, and then 2 days later, it was
Well,
All right, you ready, Jen?
last week was crystal clear, right? Now it's like this.
All right, calling to order the May 19th, 2026 meeting of the Long Lake City Council. It's 6:31 p.m. All council members are present this evening. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is mayor comments, Long Lake News, meeting reviews, and updates. Few updates this evening. First of all, a thank you to the Long Lake Garden Club for the work they did late last week on in doing some kind of annual maintenance and planting some new flowers at our 2 monument areas, as well as I believe a park or 2. That's Anita Secord and Lorene Carlson did work on that. I think later on we might actually see some photographs of their work, and always nice to kind of kick off spring with having some fresh plantings. Oh, and also in our downtown area on the former BP lot that the city owns. Besides that, last Monday, attended the monthly meeting of the Regional Council of Mayors. That was a really interesting meeting where we had a visit to the Federal Reserve. So got a presentation from the president of the Federal Reserve, Neil Kashkari, who's actually lives in neighboring Orono. Good updates there. I didn't realize all the things that go on in the Federal Reserve, and got to see where the money is cleaned and counted and all that sort of thing, and kind of fascinating, and just learn more about what the Federal Reserve does, even at the local level, to support our economy. Last week, I also attended the Northwest Hennepin League of Municipalities monthly meeting, where we had a presentation by those running for Hennepin County Attorney. 3 of the 5 candidates were present. 1 candidate was not available. Another candidate didn't respond, but 3 candidates were there. Were interesting to hear from, and I think all those candidates actually are going to put us in a better position when it comes to our county attorney's office after the next election. Coming up this weekend is Memorial Day already. Believe it or not, it's early this year. So looking forward to celebrating, honoring those that gave their lives for our country as part of the armed services. So there'll be 2 events this year where a little bit changes here is there's not going to be an event at Nelson Lakeside Park, I learned this morning, due to some kind of staffing changes and some turnover with some folks to help put that event on. So it's been a great event, but there will still be 2 events, one at Union Cemetery and one at the Church of St. George. And I know Jeanette's going to put out some information on that in the next day or 2 as Memorial Day kind of sneaks up on us here in mid-May. So those are some updates on what's going on in Long Lake and coming up this weekend. So with that, we'll move on to item 4, which is to approve this evening's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second that.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 5 is open correspondence. Open correspondence is an item on the agenda during which the public may address the City Council. No formal action is taken by the City Council, and comments shall be limited to 5 minutes or less. And open correspondence comments may also be emailed to city staff by noon on the date of the meeting. I'll point out that there's some items on the agenda tonight that may have brought some members of the audience here, including the special event permit request for the Minnesota Inboard Summer Surf Tour. That is not a public hearing. It's just a council action item. So if anybody wants to speak up regarding that item or any item on the agenda tonight, you're encouraged to do so now during open correspondence. So open it up for anyone who wishes to participate. All right, please state your name and address.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Brian Miller, 295 Lakeview Avenue. And I just have nothing but good things to say for the most part. I just celebrated my 27 years here in Long Lake as of May 14th. And I think Charlie had mentioned there was a fruit basket or something from the city? Something like that. And I know on the agenda or your recent meetings, you've been talking about raising the council pay and the mayor's pay, and I just want to support your doing that. I think it's long overdue, and I'm all for it. Also, there's a unknown material request by the state. Is it by the state, Amanda?
Which material?
The
lead
pipes
lead.
and all that kind of stuff?
Minnesota Department of Health.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a lot of unknown homes and stuff like that. I did have my water tested recently. It came back undetectable, which is good news because my house is almost 100 years old. Still not sure what the outcome is, but I want to give a shout out to Amanda for her patience and guidance with the engineer. And I never want to forget Jeanette. She's always been a great help here with the city. I also see on the agenda tonight there's bonfires at Nelson, which I think is a great idea. I think it was probably 7 to 10 years ago we ended up doing that. And I thought that was a great event. It really was a chance for community members to sit around and chat and socialize. And then I did see on the agenda, just as I was coming in here, about wake boats. And I gotta say, I've seen Roger Nelson talk about that for years and the issues that it causes with the lake. And I think, John, you know, last year, Long Lake was uninhabitable. It was a mess. And it's starting to, I walk along East Long Lake Trail every morning. It's not looking good now either. So I think that these boats are detrimental. And I also have seen on the news lately, past 6 months, maybe a year, there is an organization in northern Minnesota that has successfully banned wake boats from their lakes in accordance with state of Minnesota. And they are offering their help to others in the state of Minnesota who want to do the same because of the disaster it causes on the lake quality. So I can't remember the name, but I'm sure Google AI would tell me what it is ASAP. I guess that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Brian.
Others next.
I'll go.
All right.
Thanks for having us. I agree with everything you just said. But
State your name and
Roger
address, please.
Adams, 1130 Underhill Circle. I agree with the previous speaker. I think Amanda's doing a wonderful job. Jeanette,
Thanks, Roger.
everybody. Let me start out by saying I am not in favor of banning wakeboarding or wake surfing boats in the state of Minnesota. I think it's a great activity. It's fun for a lot of families. But like a lot of healthy, fun, outdoor recreational activities, it's also reasonable and common sense to put reasonable restrictions and regulations on some activities. As a hunter, I'm regulated, and I don't have a problem with that. You can only hunt in certain areas. I don't have a problem with that. Let me tell you a quick story. Last year they did this event, and if you remember, it was timed with high water and a no wake declaration on the lake. And the participants adhered to that restriction. No problem with Birches, no problem with the people doing the surf tour. But there were 2 spectator boats that trailered in, watched the activities at Birches, and then after that was over, decided they were going to wake surf. And it ended up nearly damaging my dock. It was knocked apart, one section was knocked over because the waves from that boat. We did call the Water Patrol. They saw us taking pictures. They took off. No wake. We jumped in our car. They beat us to the landing. and the Water Patrol was already there. I don't know what tickets they got. One boat didn't have registration numbers on it, on and on. So you can see why don't have a great deal of trust in that particular community. It has been the practice of this council, because I've done 38 snowball opens, special event permits. There's usually a list of conditions about this long associated with that. So that is common practice. In prior years, people could say, well, there isn't really much research out there saying whether it damages anything or is bad for the lake or whatever. Last year, the University of Minnesota published a multi-year study, came to very strong conclusions and recommendations. Similar study was done in Vermont, where the state put severe restrictions on the use of those boats. Another study in Wisconsin came to the same conclusions, that this is a wonderful, fun outdoor activity. It's great, it's legal, but these boats should operate at a minimum 500 feet from shore and a minimum of 20 feet of water depth. Because when in operation as intended, the prop wash goes down about 16 feet. And if you did anything about the Minnesota Research Project, they have video of what happens to the bottom of the lake when it's less than 16 feet deep and that boat goes by. All of the sediment up into the water column, creating cloudy water, causing algae blooms, ripping out aquatic life, disturbing the fishery. I don't care if those boats are out there in 20 feet of water. Fine. But I think that would be a reasonable condition to put on that special event permit, that they operate within the recommendations of that University of Minnesota study. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Roger. Anyone else?
Cindy Adams. I'm married to Roger. We live at 1130 Underhill Circle, and the wakeboarders are causing a water quality issue. They're eroding the shoreline. I don't know how many years ago, but we did a phosphorus treatment on that lake. The alum was placed down to bring all the phosphorus to the bottom, and the water quality really improved. It's brought up. And I have asthma and allergies and issues, and last year, the blue algae in front of my house was as big as this, and it smelled, and I had an asthma attack, and I couldn't even go out on my boat for the rest of the summer because I couldn't get past that blue algae patch. And if those wakeboarders keep causing these problems, our lake is going to die because nothing can survive when it's that dirty.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Anyone else?
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Brendan Green. I'm the owner of Brewmaster at Birches on the Lake. Appreciate you guys considering to have our special event permit. As they pointed out, last year there was a no wake because the water level was very high, and we did adhere to that. The problem was with others that came around, which is really hard to control on a public lake that allows wake and wake surfing. Wakeboarding actually is very different from wake surfing that I know. Wake surfing causes much more of a wake than wakeboarding. Wakeboarding is a lot like water skiing. I see people out there water skiing all the time. It's a really small lake, and there is a major water quality issue. My parents live at Tealwood. I see it all the time at Birches. I grew up on Lake Minnetonka, where their wake surfing boats are everywhere. And if I were you guys, I would seriously consider making the entire lake a no-wake lake. It's too small of a lake. It causes issues. There's all kinds of other issues that cause that blue algae bloom. And when my diners are sitting out on the deck and they can smell that algae, it turns them off. People don't want to eat when they can smell that. And by August, it gets bad. You can see it already starting now. So I would really seriously consider that. This event is a small event for us. It was very not well attended last year. It'd be maybe 50 people at most. We're very respectful of any conditions you guys want to put on it. We won't really have anybody wake surfing. It's just a way to kind of demo, boats for people that do want to go wake surfing. But it's not like it's a wake surfing competition, and we wouldn't condone anybody going out there and doing any wake surfing. And we did ask Jeanette and the Water Patrol to have a Water Patrol person there, to have, a sheriff there to make sure everything's, that we're following every rules and that everybody else who shows up on the lake is following the rules, because normally there's not someone out on the lake already. So during this event, there would be someone on the lake making sure that would happen. And, it's just something that it's just kind of a fun event for us to do. And like I said, we'll be very respectful about it. And, hopefully we can have our event with whatever conditions you guys seem to be fit with. But like I said, ultimately, I would love to have no wake. I like going to the Boundary Waters, by the way, and it's really, really nice when you don't hear those motors. Any motor, doesn't matter if it's a wake surfing or anybody, fishermen buzzing by. My parents have a cabin on Lake Vermilion. Those fishermen are crazy. They go by all the time. You go just a little bit farther away in the Boundary Waters, it's silent. It's gorgeous. It's so nice. I would say no boats. But as long as we allow motors, it's kind of weird to say, well, the wake surfing permit thing can't be happening because we allow motors on this lake already. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brendan. And, yeah, we might have more questions for you later on, since you're the applicant, so you could be up there again. We'll keep you posted. Okay, anybody else? And any submitted written open correspondence?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. We have items A through C on the consent agenda this evening. Pretty short consent agenda. Any questions for staff on those items?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 7, a non-regular business now, 7A. Amendment to section 16 of the zoning ordinance to allow commercial kennels as a permitted use in the I-1 industrial district. Hannah, you gonna kick this off?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me this evening. I just have a text amendment for you from our applicant, Max Bitterman. He owns the Dog Wellness Club and has been actively looking for a location in Long Lake for several years now. He has found a suitable location. It is in the I-1 industrial district. Commercial kennels are only allowed currently in the I-2 industrial district. A commercial kennel is any place where 3 or more dogs over the age of 3 months are boarded, bred, and or offered for sale, except a veterinary clinic. So a dog wellness center that has boarding, daycare, training, other dog-related services would meet that definition for a kennel. As I said, commercial kennels are permitted in the I-2, but they are not permitted in the I-1. Back when we were looking into cannabis businesses and where those would be located, I did notice that there is very little differentiation between the two industrial districts. The intent statements for both districts are identical, and the uses are nearly identical. The differences are marine repair is permitted in the I-1 and not the I-2, and then the kennel difference with commercial kennels being permitted in I-2 and not I-1. Other than that, the uses are identical in both districts. In terms of other differences, the only one is in lot area. The I-1 district is for larger lots, 40,000 square feet and larger, and then I-2 is smaller at 20,000 square feet minimum. So that's kind of the background there. You can see the industrial district zoning map from your staff report. It is all kind of concentrated in one area. Primarily I-1 with the light purple, and then the I-2 is a couple of concentrated areas of dark purple. But it is all in the same kind of general area. You wouldn't necessarily know whether you're in the I-1 district or I-2 by looking at it. Some of them are off of the same street.
I can bring that up, actually. They have a black and white in their printed copy.
Oh!
So I can bring up a
Saving
color.
us money and
Got it.
printing costs, as always. That's good.
Let me grab I that did for you warn real you that quick. that was a topic in our city.
Sorry about that.
That's
didn't-
okay. I'll grab that up here real quick.
Oh, look at that. Nice, it really pops.
So you could see there, it's all basically one industrial district with those two pockets of I-2. Anyways, I say all of that to just make clear that the districts are virtually the same for all intents and purposes. Jeanette and I were speaking about it, and it seems as though the commercial kennels being allowed in I-2 was a previous text amendment at some point because someone was proposing to establish a kennel business in the I-2 district. So, given that there's not any differentiation in the purpose statement or anything else, I think it would be completely reasonable to allow kennels in I-1 when they are also allowed in I-2. There are several standards that all commercial kennel facilities would need to adhere to in order to get a kennel permit, which is what is required. So we are simply proposing to add the text that currently exists and the standards that go along with it in the I-2 district to the I-1 district. The Planning Commission held the public hearing last week and unanimously recommended approval. They were very supportive of the project and identified that this type of business is a need in town and would be a nice option for residents to have and visitors to Long Lake as well. And we have not had any complaints or issues with the other kennel facility in town that's located in the I-2 district. And again, the applicant would need to conform to all of the requirements laid out to obtain a kennel permit, should this amendment be approved. So that's kind of my overview. I can take any questions you have for me on this one.
All right, questions for Hannah from the council?
I'm curious if you know the history of how I-2 came about. Were there two different, were the I-1 and I-2 from the start, or was I-1 and then, because it seems like there's a random like distribution of I-2 in there.
We find that more often than not.
But I mean, marine repair is permitted in I-1, not in I-2. And so the only thing that you can't do.
If I can add to that, marine repair, the reason that was permitted was actually a previous text amendment. That was Tonka Auto and Marine. They made a text amendment to request that marine repair become a permitted use.
Oh, so before that, there was no marine repair
Correct.
allowed?
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
To go along with what you're saying, I also forgot to mention, this is something that it may be worth looking into following the 2050 comprehensive plan to see whether consolidation of the industrial districts is appropriate or differentiation between the two to provide two separate zoning districts. Because I think as it stands, it doesn't really make any sense to have two if they're not going to be any different.
Well, it looks like I-2 also has a smaller square foot requirement minimum. So maybe that's why, because they were smaller lots, and so they, I don't know, it just seemed odd to me that we have the two different industrial.
And the lot size kind of becomes less relevant when you're dealing with a fully developed industrial area. It's very unlikely that there's only probably a small handful of these that would be potentially subdividable. The rest are going to be capped out at the way that the lots sit today. But that's a great point. So I think in terms of just this amendment, it would be very logical to approve it, but also the council can keep in the back of mind that maybe we should take a look at the districts and see if there's room for improvements in terms of how they're administered in the zoning ordinance.
Makes sense. And so this is the Hendrickson property. Is this just a space within that building, or is it the entire building?
One of the spaces.
Okay.
One of 5, I believe.
I believe so, yes. The property owner, too, is also very supportive of this application. She's pretty enthusiastic about her potential tenant. And it is also just worth noting from a front desk community feedback perspective that having commercial kennels in the industrial district certainly does minimize impact to potentially having those kinds of businesses closer to residential neighborhoods. So that is wonderful. Additionally, we are very well aware that the existing kennel along Daniel Street is often on a wait list. It's something we hear about.
And they're I-2?
There is,
Or
yes,
there-
they are in I-2.
Yeah.
And Had this been in one of those very few I-2 parcels, it would have been eligible. It's just, I-1 is a much larger portion of the industrial district, but doesn't have this as a permitted use yet.
Yeah, it seems like a great location. I think at one point we were entertaining it at the old BP site, right? And I think we all agreed it'd be great to have a business like this in the city, but maybe not right on that primary corner in our downtown area. So I'm glad that they've seemed to have found a solution for that. So,
Well, I can make a motion.
That'd be
I don't know if I'm,
fantastic.
jumping ahead, a motion to adopt ordinance number 2026-02, amending section 16 of the city's zoning ordinance to allow commercial kennels as a permitted use in the I-1 industrial zoning district.
all right, I'll second that. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I wonder
Great.
if there's a difference so that they don't subdivide the I-1 lots that are minimum 40,000 square feet requirement.
That very well could be the case.
That's the only thing I can think of that, why we would have two different ones.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item 7B then. Special event permit request for the Minnesota Inboard Summer Surf Tour Stop at Birches on the Lake. Jeanette, you gonna kick this one off?
Thank you, Mayor. This event permit request before you this evening is essentially the same permit request we saw last year. Birches is requesting an event permit to host the Minnesota Inboard Summer Surf Tour Stop on Saturday, June 20th, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Minnesota Inboard would be demonstrating in total 2 2026 model wake boats. During those hours, they'd be providing professional rider exhibitions, offering wake surf lessons with those boats with professional instructors. There would be a DJ broadcasting music from Birch's Deck. There'd be food and beverage specials. There'd be some event sponsors on the property offering some product giveaways and some sampling. Birch's has already submitted an application to Hennepin County Sheriff's Office Water Patrol for this permit. I do want to mention, we at a staff level were very aware of what had happened by the not so well behaved extra public boaters last year, who, again, it cannot be said enough, this was not associated with Birch's event. Birch's is not responsible for what happened last year. These were Holland boaters who behaved poorly. And Water Patrol was not around in a timely manner to be able to put a stop to it before the activity had occurred. So when we were being mindful of that and looking at the event permit conditions for this year, the two biggest changes that we made, really the biggest change that we made was to state that any wake surfing activity, on water would need to be at least 300 feet from shore and stay 300 feet from shore. Last year's was 200 feet from shore. It's not a condition of the permit because we don't have the ability to actually physically schedule a deputy. But Birches, again, as part of their permit application, there is a box they can check on that application that says, are you requesting a Water Patrol deputy to be present for your event? And you can check yes or no. Well, last year, Birches would have checked no because we wouldn't have anticipated there would be an issue. This year, they've checked yes, both to, protect themselves. They don't want to be held responsible for what potentially poorly behaved public users might be up to, but also, to protect the residents on the lake. If we would like to have your deputy present and on scene as opposed to getting that call to please come out. We want them to already be there, and hopefully that would prevent what happened last year from happening again. I also communicated directly with Water Patrol, and I asked them if there's a fee you know, for them to be out there. Is there any reason why we shouldn't be making that request? And they confirmed that no, there is not. And I said, well, we'd also really like you to be there. So not only did Birch's make that request through their event permit application, but I have hammered that message home as well, and kind of brought it to their attention that there were issues that occurred last year. I said, you may want to check the reports that came in last year. I'm sure there were some, but it is important to us as a city as well. So, otherwise, conditions are largely the same. If Long Lake's under a slow no wake restriction on the date of the event either has to be canceled or a revised event plan limiting boat use to on-dock viewing only may be considered, but must be pre-approved in writing by the city clerk. Usual language is about alcoholic beverages may only be sold and consumed on the licensed premises, which is, you know, the Birch's restaurant interior, the attached deck, and the contiguous patio. Let's see here. The condition, basically consistent with the event plan, no more than 2 wake boats may be utilized for the event, and, you know, well, vehicles and boat trailers are required to park in the Birches on the Lake parking facilities. You know, the vehicles can obviously be launched at Nelson Lakeside Park, but we don't want them to be taking up our parking locations for our public users. Operation of the wake boats, use of safety equipment, towing and other activities must be in compliance with all Minnesota state boating laws and regulations at all times. And, of course, proof of approval from Water Patrol for the Minnesota Inboard Summer Surf Tour Stop would need to be submitted to us at least 1 week in advance of the event date. And, of course, failure to abide by any of the conditions in the permit may result in permit revocation.
And the 300 feet coincides roughly with about a 20-foot depth on the contour plot, you said. In an
I
email.
took a look at the best thing I could find for a lake map on the DNR's website, and that 300-foot mark did appear to put that closer to the 20-foot mark. That was what the goal was. I will say, I do confess, those DNR lake maps are probably, you know, not as accurate as anybody who's got one of those lovely, you know, boat map chips and stuff is probably getting much more accurate data, but I had to work with what I had at my disposal from my desktop.
Let me step back, just refresh my memory about, you know, what requires a special event permit, like for a business like Birch's. They have a 70s sunshine band there playing inside. That doesn't require a special permit.
Correct.
Is it anything that just occurs outside the property, or?
Well, in this case, what would trigger it the most is that Water Patrol wouldn't issue a permit for Birch's to have an event using the lake without receiving permission from the city to do that.
And Orono,
And that's not, well, I don't think they require it from Orono in this
really?
case. They require it from us because Birch's is in the city of Long Lake limits.
Oh, okay.
So Birch's is the responsible party for the event.
Yeah.
They are the applicant. Therefore, we are the issuing agency, the authorizing agency.
Years ago, there was going to be an event, and then both cities need to approve it, but it wasn't sponsored by Birch's, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So is it more the launching from the land that?
Use of public property is really what triggers special event permits. So the lake in this case is a
Okay.
public water body that is being used to host an event. If they were using our trail to host a race, that is also when we see Birch's come before us for an event permit, just as if the fire department were wanting to run a 5K that was using our trail and going up to the loose line, that would require a special event permit. The Corn Days Parade, same thing, they're using our right-of-way. The Corn Days Summer Festival, part of the reason they require a special event permit is less about use of public property and more tied to really their liquor licensing and their insurance. Catholic Mutual and for their insurance and everything. They need to have a permit from the city, permission from the city to have their event. They also are aware that to some degree their event can influence use of right-of-way as well, and the fact that there's a lot of pedestrians coming up and down the road, walking to and from the event. So, but generally use of public property, whether it's a water body or a trail, or a road, or a park, is gonna be what triggers your special event permit.
So why doesn't it trigger it for Orno?
'Cause it's Long Lake property, our dirt, not their
If
dirt.
Birch's was, if Birch's was hosting the event based solely out of Summit Beach and not at Birch's. So, like if Orono were actually hosting the event, say Orono's Park Commission was hosting an event based out of Summit Beach, they would be needing a permit and would have to follow their own permit process. Orono doesn't actually have a restaurant on the lake. If they did, they would be in this situation. So,
Jeanette, how's the general public receive notification that it's high water and a no wake?
I can't speak to how Orono communicates it on their side of things. I can say that on our side of things, we put it on our website, we put it on our Facebook page, we put it
Post
out
it.
on our listserv.
Post it down by the,
We do
Nelson
post
Park.
it down, yep, we
So it's
get
at
signage down there.
Notification at the lake when someone.
Yep, there is, yes. Yes.
All right.
And so it would be communicated to Birch's, I assume.
Oh, of course, of course. And actually, I usually, anybody that I know that might have a park reservation within a window, when there's a beach closure or a slow no wake, I will usually reach out to them directly and say, if your event was counting on the swimming beach being open or counting, going to involve any kind of boating, I just want to give you a heads up that this may impact your event, so.
And I think there are other events at other, demoing boats and kind of, people can look at boats at other venues. Nothing I can afford, though.
I know we have our city attorney here. Just any guidance you can provide us as far as, what the council should be considering as we're evaluating approving this permit? What things we shouldn't be considering when evaluating this permit?
Yep. Excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would say the council, I think it has been properly advised by Jeanette on this. It's the permitting standard generally for the special event permit is you're attaching reasonable conditions to the use that are as contemplated by what's proposed for the use, right? So there's I think the noise amplification is found within there, so there's considerations for that. Same thing with the use of the lake, but the evaluation wouldn't be whether certain boating activity or whatever is controlled on the lake on that day, and that's a function of a totally different process. This is really the ability to use the Birch's property to hold this event, and whether there are reasonable conditions attached to that to curtail any potential problems related to the event. And I think staff has worked pretty hard to manage some of the concerns that were brought forward last year and apply them, the additional distance, putting it to the deeper portion of the lake to try to avoid some of the concerns. The public element, this has been brought up by a few people, but the public element of it is not really within the council's purview. There, who comes to the lake on that given day is not within the city's control. It's just a matter of whether or not the conditions you put on the permit are appropriate for the proposed event.
Okay.
Our hope is that by bringing, we hope, a deputy present for the event, that we are doing the best we can to help curtail any public behavior, although technically it is not within the purview of the permit. A deputy still has to do their job.
and by the way, when we were at No Wake last year, there was violators virtually every day.
yes.
So this was not the only day they were there. And so I would encourage
Correct.
anybody that sees that to call the sheriff when they see whether they're wake surfing or skiing or wakeboarding or anybody that's making a wake,
Yes.
When there's no wake, call the sheriff and
Yes.
and report it.
How,
I
did
think
we,
that's a great, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just, I think that's a great point too, is that the having having law enforcement present there, and now I think everything has been done. Obviously, the city doesn't have the ability to mandate it. We've asked, that Jeanette's worked very hard to try to make sure that's stressed that that this is a request. Applicant has participated in that as well. I think it multiplies the chances you're going to have a presence there, which I think probably covers most of the largest concerns.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think last year we saw some violations too, and somebody was going 10, 15 miles an hour in a pontoon, and I were able to corner the guy and just yelled at him, and we're going 3 miles an hour. It's hard to manage that. But just the fact, we screamed at him, and it's like, no wake, and he's like, oh, I didn't know. But that was a discussion last year too. It's like the signage, did we make that more obvious down there? I haven't seen it on our wake
think
since
there's
that point, so.
room for improvement.
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was pretty clear, but,
Okay, just as long, because he played,
yeah.
it's obvious, okay, because he was, okay.
Well, I don't know if they did that. I don't know if because people could go in and just put around slowly. I mean, we can't stop them from doing that,
Yeah.
but,
But it's obvious, so this guy just played dumb and,
yeah, I think,
That's for later.
I think they were playing dumb.
yeah, well, and that's, yeah, just gotta give him tickets.
Okay. Other comments? or questions?
I just want to say, that since we're talking about the lake, I share the concern strongly that people have about the condition of the lake. I took pictures yesterday already, May 18th, and we have this green slime on the top of the lake. Now, sometimes that cycles through a few times. We'll get some improvement in this, like in a few weeks, and then it'll cycle in and out. But overall, it's getting worse and earlier. However, I don't wake surf boats are not at the top of my list for the cause of that. I've read the study, I've watched the videos, I understand what they're saying, and I agree that they need to operate in deeper water. But we just have too much phosphorus in the lake. We need to sort of address that. And the watershed district is trying to address the inflow of more TMDLs and the things that promote the algae growth. I've said this before here. I attended a presentation from Lakeshore Restoration, who did a study of our lake, a quick study. It wasn't like an extended one, but it was one to do consider at least a 2-year alum treatment program. They did an alum treatment back in the 90s, as I understand it, but it's changed a lot since then from the way this was presented. And by the way, we took out a lot of the carp, which is one of the things you need to do before you can be successful with an alum treatment. And now they have the technology has improved so much so that they do more spot application, not just broadcasting over the whole lake, because he says the way he presented it was very informative. And Jane Davidson actually is going to come and present, I think, to our council, where you really you don't need to do the whole lake. You need to do those areas that are 15 feet and deeper, because that's the anoxic zone where phosphorus can come out and promote the algae growth that it does. And for some reason, in the shallower regions, the phosphorus isn't as big a problem. So that way, you're not doing 280 acres worth of alum, but I think it was like half that, and so the cost is reduced. Now it's still a big cost, and there's 2 applications now. So that's another thing that's sort of changed from the way they did it before, where you do one application and then you sort of measure. You're taking measurements constantly to see how it's improving, and then you do another one based on the results of the first one. And so there's this 2-year program that they were promoting. Now there's probably others that do this too, but they were showing how they've done this on several lakes, and it almost instantly takes it off the impaired waters list, which is our lake is on. And so I would strongly be an advocate for this if we could somehow find a way to raise the money. It was it wasn't cheap. It was over $200,000 to do it. However, that was less than what some of the initial estimates that I had heard from people when they based it on the full square footage of the lake. Anyway, that's not. I know that we're not talking about that here, but I know there's been a lot of just talk about how wake surf boats are the problem, and if they're not operated properly, they contribute to the problem. But I think the problem is much bigger. There hasn't been any surf boats yet on the lake this year, that I've seen anyway, and yet we've got this sort of like algae bloom suddenly happening. I think it's just that there's too much phosphorus in the lake. We need to lock that up in the alum process, and so when Jane Davison comes, I would, you know, we'll hear more about that, but. So I don't know how, there's grants, there's, you know, maybe the cities of Orono. I've talked to actually one of the Orono council members, made them aware of the problem, and talked about like maybe the two cities could participate in it. I know that, you know, it would probably be a small amount, but then, you know, there's grants, there's fundraising perhaps. Somehow, I would like to see us get back to a lake that's you know, fully recreational. I'm not in favor of a no-wake lake. I think this lake is here for recreational use, and I think we just have to be responsible with it, you know, and try to, who knows where the state's gonna go with wake surf boats. I don't know. I'm not a wake surf boat guy, but I am a water skier, and I enjoy that activity, and I wanna be able to do that, you know, continue to do that. I think if that's done responsibly, I think even if wake surfing is done responsibly, maybe it's okay. I don't know, but that's kind of maybe going to be a battle that the state is going to be continuing to deal with. But for now, I just think I'd like to focus on the real issue, and that's, you know, the problem of the algae that's coming so early. It seems earlier and earlier every year. And I know that the Watershed District has, you know, programs and plans in place to reduce the inflow. But that's, you know, we were when was it, in January, when they presented this winter in Orono, their plans. And I thought it sounded great, but I attended a similar meeting 10 years ago, and it was the same, it was the same plan. And so, not to knock them, I mean, I feel like that's a good thing what they're doing. But even if it is effective, it's not going to have an impact for, you know, 10 plus years. And their position is you do all of that work first, then you do the alum treatment. But there's a lot of people that think, no, you can do them in parallel, and so that we can have long-term benefit, but also get some more immediate benefit. But I'm changing the subject. I know this is about the wake surf thing. I was going to mention, though, Brendan, you said that that there wasn't going to be wake surfing, but on here it says pro rider exhibition, wake surf lessons, and professional instructors. So I think there is intention to have some wake surfing going on there. But to me, two boats staying, you know, in the middle of the lake for 5 hours, and if there's a sheriff there to monitor that, I think that's no worse than what happens on a regular basis in the summertime. So I think if we hold, you know, try to hold them to that 300 foot, which, you know, the lake isn't much wider than 600 feet at the narrowest points. I don't know what the width is there, but maybe it's more than that. But so it's pretty much going to be up and down the middle.
1,200 feet from the cemetery point across the other point.
Oh, it is that far.
Shortest distance, right there.
Oh, okay. So it is wider than I thought, but
But the 20-foot depth starts between those 2 points.
yeah.
Further east.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, I just wanted to say that we need to, especially when I was just so disappointed when I went out yesterday and I saw the green algae on top of the lake, and
I am
was like-
unfortunately expecting to get a blue-green algae advisory as well.
That's a
yeah,
bummer.
it's
Sorry.
And it's been cold. I mean, it hasn't
Yeah.
been
no,
that hot.
it's, you know, and it was crystal clear last week, and I thought, it's not going to last. And then suddenly I saw those little globs of green that were starting, and then boom, it just.
Last year was May 11th.
Oh, was it May 11th?
I mean, these are pictures from May 11th.
Okay, well, maybe.
I mean, it's.
We're
it's-
One
but
week
it's- it's
later.
But like I said, it will
2 years
cycle,
ago.
you know, and it'll be like,
2 years ago, though, it wasn't like this. It's just like
So
last
what,
year,
do
we
you
had
know
a
what the blue-green
dislocation.
algae is? I mean, is it
Well,
something
that's-
that
I
hasn't
mean,
been-
what we see today isn't blue-green algae, I don't think.
Whatever the conditions are,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's when it gets really bad, and then it gets toxic, and then you can't, like,
Yeah.
some people die and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah. It's especially bad for dogs too, that might jump in the lake, so.
So was it bad, would the alum treatment kind of target that algae?
Oh, well, it won't allow, it doesn't target the algae, it targets the phosphorus that promotes the algae growth.
Okay.
And so, that's why this presentation that I listened to was really informative. I mean, I'd done my research on alum treatments, I kind of thought I knew, but this was a whole, like, they're really getting a new technology to sort of like be more targeted and you know, more scientific in their approach. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I'd welcome Jane to come and present that. So
I can reach back out to her and see what their timeline is like. She had contacted me at one point, though, and advised me that she was waiting to come and make that presentation at a meeting until she had a better idea what the Waters Association's ask was going to be. She didn't want to just come to make the presentation. She wanted to have a better direction before she came.
okay.
So but I'll reach back out to her.
What about Orno? Are they gonna pay for part of, would they, like now?
And then maybe
Well,
this is
I won't
something we
speak
should
for
just
Orno, but-
schedule for a work session at another.
Yeah, we should probably try to stay on topic here, but
As a quick aside, my understanding of the reason you do the alum, as you said, it grabs the phosphorus and the undissolved solids in the water. And it
Settle
sinks
to the
up
bottom, yeah.
So what happens when that prop wash stirs up all that sediment? There you get your phosphorus load again.
Yeah, but they're putting this in the deeper parts of the lake, right? So it's
You
the
said 15 feet.
15 plus.
This thing says 16 feet, it's still damaging
Yeah.
the bottom, so.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was 15.
That lake's less than 15 feet.
Yeah, but, yeah, I can't remember if it was 15 feet or 20 feet, but it was a deeper part of the lakes that they put it in, and if it's done right, like the methods that they use now, they say it could last, you know, over 10 years, 10 to 15 years.
As long as it's undisturbed.
Jeanette, as far as Water Patrol, did in your conversations with them, is one sort of enforcement mechanism they have is, you know, if there are any violations of our permit this year, you know, they would be less likely to, you know, allow that to occur, you know, next year or something like that. Was that mentioned by chance or as a?
They didn't mention that, but at the end of the day, if that's what happens, that's what happens. But I think we are, you know, part of the reason both we as a staff, I think, and Birch's want Water Patrol to be there is because Birch's has a history of, excuse the terminology, but playing by the rules. And so we want to make sure that Water Patrol is out there to, first of all, A, make sure that continues, but B, make sure they're not held responsible for what a public user may be doing. So, you know, if there are issues that occur, but their behavior by the public, Birch's shouldn't be held responsible for that.
All right.
You know, I can start, I don't know if people are finished discussing, but I can make a motion, because I'm on a roll.
Yeah, this is your night. This is your night.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2026-24, approving issuance of a special event permit number S2-2026-06 for the Minnesota Inboard Summer Surf Tour Stop to be held June 20th, 2026, to approve issuance of a noise variance permit and to authorize the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office Water Patrol Unit to permit the event.
All right, motion. And
Second that.
Second, Councilman Newcomer, further discussion. I'll just add that, you know, the whole wakeboard, wakeboat, I learned something tonight, there's wake surfing versus wakeboarding. I don't know what that is, to be honest, but cause.
They're different boats.
Okay. My hope is that at the legislative level, this gets fixed. I know this gets brought up every couple of years, and there's land of 10,000 lakes, I think, as we all know, and there's more like 15,000 of them. So rather than cities like ours and all different, Orno and Independence, I think Independence and Medina just did something a month or two ago. But rather than having these local, you know, if you're a boater, you got to figure out, okay, I'm going to this city now. What are the rules in this city? I'm going to research that. I sure hope that down the road there'll be a more of a statewide, I'm used to, enforcing statewide laws and that sort of thing, and everybody knows, everybody's on the same page when it comes to that, so, as an
The
aside.
categories are, like wake surf boats and wake board boats both use ballast, and they're both ballast boats. In other words, they pump water into these bags that are sort of hidden in the sides or the back, so, because they want to weight it down so that it makes a bigger wake. And so there has been discussion about you could limit or somehow restrict or ballast boats. Water ski boats have no ballast. In fact, you do not want to wake when you're on a water ski boat. So they're in a different category, but some people, so there's really three boats: wake surf, wakeboard, and ski boats.
There's crossover boats, there's big.
Well, yeah, no, I know,
There's a whole spectrum.
there's a whole
I never knew
crossover,
that.
yeah.
Oh, see,
No, but I
you
mean,
got such boring lives.
so ballast boats are in that category of, just having some discussion about, these are the ones that are being discussed at the state level, if they want to try to restrict them somehow.
Got it. Yeah, just nice to have some consistency when it comes to that. All right, so motion and second. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to thank Brennan, your proactive approach with Birches to ask for the sheriff to be out in that area. So,
Yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, as we know, hopefully they can be there. If something higher priority comes up, they're going to be drawn to that, of course. But hopefully it all works out and they can be present. All right. Motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you for staff on that one, as well as the input from the public on that one. Okay. Moving on, regular business, item 7C, another special event permit request, this one for the Park Board's Long Lake Beach Bonfire at Nelson Lakeside Park. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a kind of a fun, warm, fuzzy. It's funny, the bonfire event that Mr. Miller had alluded to earlier on the beach. I remember actually hearing stories about that. That wasn't actually a permitted event. I remember finding out after the fact that some folks had just started a bonfire on the beach some years back, and everybody had a great time out there, but we didn't really find out about that one until later. This one is the Park Board's idea, and they're very excited about it. So on behalf of our Park Board, our Chair, Erica Leachman, with a little assistance as well from one of our Park Board members, Kelly Grady. They've prepared a special event permit request. The Park Board wants to host a Long Lake Beach bonfire. It'd be a free community get-together at Nelson Lakeside Park on Saturday, May 30th. I know, I apologize. I sent out the packet with a typo there on the date, and then I sent out an immediate revision after, so apologies for any confusion there. It's from 6 to 8 on Saturday, the 30th. The event would just feature a bonfire on the beach supervised by the Shoreline Fire Department. Sparky will be around too, to help supervise. Maybe a couple fire pits out there. Gonna have lawn games for attendees. The Chamber of Commerce has volunteered to donate hot dogs and some condiments and buns and canned drinks. So the Park Board will be making those available while supplies last. Folks are also welcome to bring their own picnic if they'd like. Music's going to be broadcast on a speaker. We won't have a DJ out there for this one. The music also isn't going to be like really unreasonable, but we are going to make sure that we give Avavetta a heads up that this is going to be happening out there. Essentially, the Park Board's goal, they just really want to have a fun summer kickoff picnic and try to, they're looking for new ways to provide opportunities to help draw Long Lake residents to their parks and highlight the parks. They have a couple more really cool ideas coming down the pipeline for other events, and I won't spoil them. But there's one that I think is really particularly fun and low-key, but yeah, we're just looking for council to consider approval of that special event permit this evening. The conditions are, instead of a big fancy letter of conditions, this is a very low-key event. So the permit conditions are listed on the permit, which is that cleanup of park property is required to be completed immediately following the event. They're gonna do the best they can. In all reality, there may be some things that need to be cleaned up on Sunday.
The fire's gonna be right on the beach?
It will be there will be a fire right on the beach
And
in
it
a
says there's-
location that Sean's approved.
It says a few fire pits, but is there gonna be one main one, or?
Well, it'll be the one main bonfire, and then the contained fire pits that we use at the holiday tree lighting. We'll have probably a couple of those unless they decide they don't need them.
Okay.
But we're planning for them. Also, no alcoholic beverages may be sold or distributed. Sorry to be the fun police, but it is a city park, and no one's there to hold a liquor license. Shoreline Fire Department's gonna be on site at all times while the larger bonfire is burning. They also are gonna have an engine down there with that nice Shoreline Fire Department logo, so it's gonna be a fun, kind of a rollout opportunity too. Written permission from at least one off-site parking location is required. I actually have secured that to assist the park board. Mid-Country Bank generously offered to be an off-site parking location. We also mentioned, because we are not very far away, anybody who wants to park in City Hall, go park in City Hall. And the noise variance permit would be required for use of sound amplification equipment. Our plan is also, we don't want anybody to be scared by a fire on the beach. So I do plan to send emails with copies of the event flyer directly to as many email addresses as I have on file for the residents of Avavetta and a couple other residents right in that immediate vicinity to let them know, but I didn't want to do that until the council had had an opportunity to review and consider issuance of the permit.
So the city's going to permit the city?
Yes,
Yeah.
because we're using our own public property. We're playing by our own rules, yes.
So I will also add that the wood that will be used for the large bonfire will be trees that we're taking down by public.
Goodbye ash trees.
Oh, wow. This is a win-win.
I know.
Yes.
So we are getting rid of.
Yes,
Wow.
sustainable.
Yeah, the circle.
Big bonfire, right?
Yeah, I do want a big bonfire, but are they recently taken down trees? Hopefully they've been aged a bit.
I
they're
did
very
give
dead.
Sean a heads up. I
Okay.
said,
As
save
long as they're
trees,
very
save
dead, then.
I was gonna say, they've been dead for a while.
They're very
trees." Hoping
dead.
so.
Right. All right, sounds like a great event. Kudos to our park board, and we have some new creative folks on our park board that are come up with these
Yes.
ideas, so that's
Yes.
fantastic, and it'll be fun to see how it turns out. Is there gonna be good weather for the event then, or?
Oh, gosh, we sure hope so.
I hope
Right,
so.
John? Yes.
Yes.
there will be.
Right.
Yes.
Right, right.
Actually, my daughter's graduation party is
Yes.
that same night, so.
We are aware.
I'm coming there for dinner first.
Can come down, yeah. Right.
So I can make a motion, because I've been on a roll, to adopt resolution number 2026-26, accepting the plans and specifications for the, wrong one. I'm looking at the wrong one.
There goes your roll.
I know. Special event permit number S 2026-08 for the Long Lake Beach Bonfire event to be held on Saturday,
Yes.
May 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Nelson Lakeside Park, subject to the conditions of approval stated in the permit, and to approve a issuance of a noise variance permit for the event.
Nice.
Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Social
Great.
media launch to begin
Yes,
tomorrow.
can't wait.
Have
Well,
a great flyer and
the
some
world-
imagery ready to go.
Nice, nice. Okay. Looking forward to that first annual event, hopefully.
Don't ask Gear West for parking, because I've already asked them for it.
Oh,
yes.
really? For your event?
Okay,
And they said yes.
great. All right, item 7D now, 2026 sanitary lining project. Accept plans and specifications and authorize advertising for bids.
Yes.
Amanda.
Mr. Mayor, tonight I will be presenting the the resolution for the, accepting the plans and specifications for the 2026 sewer lining project that we've discussed a few times here in the past during work sessions, and to also authorize advertising for bids. As a reminder, I put the map up on the screen. And for the 2026 sewer lining project, we discussed this in detail at the April 7th, 2026 council meeting. We are proposing a sewer lining project in Districts 3, Districts 5, and then a spot pipe repair in District 1 east of the Wolf Point Trail. Tonight, I'm asking council to approve their plans and specs and to authorize staff to go out and WSB to go out for bids.
So,
Go ahead.
so that District 1 little section, I've been thinking about this more. Is there any way that we can, any realistic way to get any before and after? Because that feels like a pretty substantial leak location, like potential for a leak into our.
That's the one that has complete offset, right?
A complete offset. I do believe that they are doing a very small section. If you recall, when we were doing pricing came in a lot higher than we expected, and the grant was a lot lower than we expected, but that was an emergency area. So I know that they are going to do the repair, but I think I don't know if they'll be doing any lining, because I don't even know if they're going to bring the lining over. That is going to be,
But either way, you're talking about getting some
Yeah,
sort of
'cause
measurement of how big an improvement
I
that
don't know how we
is.
do it, I mean, because I don't know if we can check the hours that the,
Are you gonna report that to the Met Council, that kind of, are you doing it for like,
I'm not doing anything, these are questions. I mean, I'm just curious, because, yeah, the fact that it was offset, it just feels like that could, any saturation of soil is gonna just be pouring into that. And it'd be, I don't know if there's any way we can measure before and
Curious to
after.
quantify a before and
Yeah,
after,
I don't know if we
essentially.
have
I can ask
Down in a manhole.
on
Yeah,
that.
well, I didn't know, like, if we have a downstream lift station or something that we can check the average hours that are running versus before and after. I don't even know if it's possible there, but.
And I can find out from Sean as well. He might have information on that. Or obviously with the televising, we can see what the televising showed prior.
Yeah.
And that would probably show flow and then possibly go in.
Yeah,
and do
well,
it.
I mean, even in all the areas, it would be nice, I know that you probably can't do it, but it would be nice to say, hey, we reduced the flow by, or the I&I by X%, in this area, and kind of see how much improvement we're getting, but I know that's probably not.
Yes and
achievable.
no. When we were talking about doing this, because this is gonna be something that we're gonna address as a city over the next 5 years. I have a sewer lining project plan. We won't be stopping after this. In that plan, we were talking about going back and televising, and we might have done that, District 4, what we had done last year. So to kind of see, we had done the televising, we had done the repairs, go back again and do another round of televising. Number one, to see any data and what the repairs have done, and also to make sure that the repairs were up to our expectations. And so it might be interesting, we might be able to tell pretty easily what some of this flow is.
It's such a hard thing to measure and predict, but then it's like, if you get it wrong, it's such a huge bill from Met Council that.
Correct.
I mean, it's just, we're flying blind, but there are big stakes on what
Absolutely.
we decide and where we decide to.
The biggest challenge that we're going to have as a city is, if you recall, the Metropolitan Council bills, I believe, 2 years
Yeah,
out. So
it's a lag.
it may be a few years before we start to see if there's any results, but I will still be watching it pretty closely. Because if you recall, when they tell us what our new rates are for the Metropolitan Council, it shows what our flows are each year, and there's a comparison year to year. So
And then, yeah, we can at least compare to neighboring cities with
When-
rain flows and stuff.
and then maybe the before and after might get them to maybe adjust that? Probably not. If we could,
I have not seen a lot of adapt. I don't see a lot of, it's kind of, this is what the flows are, this is what you're. I thought that I thought we would have received a larger grant given the significance of our problem, but that we just didn't.
what is way lining? WYE lining, is that what they're doing in?
I cannot answer that. I will get back to you. I will admit that Jeanette pointed out to me that WSB should have been at this meeting. I thought I could save money by having them not be here, and then I did realize later we have a do not exceed, so it was completely unnecessary for me to tell them not to come. I was trying to be cost effective, and Jeanette did very kindly help me. She's like, in the future, I will remind you when WSB needs to be here, so I can find out what that
I
lining
never knew,
is.
Well,
just,
where is it that you're saying?
In the Y lining.
That's
Oh,
that's literally
That's the connections, the joints,
Other
yeah.
joints, yeah.
oh,
right, but it's specifically where you have a Y, where you have like,
Yep, and you're
Okay.
coming up into the connector, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Correct.
I didn't
Oh,
want to
okay.
override.
And that rang a bell. So what we have elected to do is every single private connection that comes into the main lines is connected by a Y.
yeah.
More of a T.
Okay.
But
Well,
we
it's,
have,
yeah, they might have an angle on it, so instead of just being a straight T, it's kind of.
so we are going to be lining not only city property, the main line, we have also elected to line
A little bit up
connection
into.
points.
Well, go up like a couple of feet.
Like a foot, yeah, just to cover that connection. As we mentioned, the private line is their responsibility, but just covering that where it connects, we
okay.
feel like that would be very
So
beneficial.
the private line's their responsibility, but all I&I that goes into the private line is the city's responsibility.
Correct, and if you recall, a while ago, there was a lot of talk about implementing something where we would require private lines to be televised, whether at a point of sale or such. I personally felt at that time that it was inappropriate to ask our residents to have a mandate until as a city, we started to have more of a handle on what we were gonna do on the main lines.
Then we can say, we've taken care of the city's
Absolutely.
pipes, now you need to take care of yours.
Correct.
Exactly.
I want to lead by example first and at least show some scenarios that we have taken care of as a city so that I feel comfortable implementing a policy that to residents.
How hard is it if we did something at point of sale, we need to televise this home's sewer? Is it, I've kind of envisioned them going
Apparently,
into a
it's
sewer line
fairly
and
common, so I wouldn't,
doing the whole thing at once a tree, but can you just do one?
I believe they can because it's
I
pretty
actually,
common.
it's funny, I was talking to Jim Lundberg about this, and, he was trying to sell his home as he's moving to Florida, and he just got smacked with one very unfortunate, what was it, $11,000 bill? Because he had his line
Inspection is part of the home sale.
televised and bad things happened, and suddenly he encountered quite the expensive correction to, hey, congratulations on your move, here's your very expensive repair.
And as we think about that, I'm just thinking about our situation. We have 3 homes in a maintenance agreement that have one shared private line. So
I wouldn't.
how would you swing that?
We'd have to keep it. It's probably something that as a council we'll be discussing once, like I said, once we've done at least part of our portion. And we'll have to take things
Yeah,
like that
a
in
lot of
consideration
complexity in
because
that.
there might be some unique situations that would
Yeah.
cause issues. But we would have to write that right away into what our expectations were, so.
Not an
So
easy
you
problem.
can't sell the home.
How about if I just, the last one to sell the home, so I'll click
Yeah.
it out.
There you go.
Just hot potato the thing.
Just don't be the first.
All right, any other questions for staff on this one?
So just quick question, like, it's almost $1 million, but we talked about this before. So, the grant, how much does the grant cover? Like, a small?
I will admit I'm not completely organized. The grant is gonna be around $50,000 guaranteed. If you recall, we're
Oh,
guaranteed
okay.
50,000. The rest, they said that it would depend on how many people applied, and once the work was done, then they would look at what was
Oh,
left
that- I
and kind of.
remember that.
So I'm only counting on the 50,000. A
And then there's the TIF.
majority of this, yes, will be covered in TIF, probably both restricted and unrestricted funds. Because restricted funds, we were approved to use in this, and the reason we chose these areas is because I felt like these were the largest affected by
Oh, okay.
development. So that is an approvable expense for restricted TIF funds, which by using and requesting restricted TIF funds, we were given an extra $250. Or we could have just waived that $250 and allowed Hennepin County to keep it, and then had all of our money unrestricted. But because we found a use that was appropriate, we will be using that. And I believe in TIF funds, we're probably looking at between around $500,000, $600,000 in TIF funds that we will be able to use.
That's great.
Yes, I'm very excited. I think this will be a good opportunity. And
What is the fraction of our lines that are getting done with this done? I mean, so it was 1, 2, 4?
I
lost my math.
apologize.
You disconnected yourself.
I did.
Or 1, 2 and a piece of 4.
We are going, are you asking which districts we're doing? I
I'm just
apologize.
curious what fraction, because we did a big chunk of the sewer lining before. I'm just curious, like, it feels like there's this,
We did 4 with the exception,
Not fully.
yes, with
Uh,
the exception of Grant. We
Well-
did not do
Well,
Grant.
no, actually, when we did 4, it was a little more based on spot repair than it actually was a full lining. That was one of the things that came to our attention when we had a change in city engineers, as our former city engineer, Reifstack, had recommended just like spot lining from section to section here and there, whereas city engineer Oliver had said he would have recommended lining the full
Spot.
district, rather than doing spot repairs. So, I
No,
don't,
we're only doing the yellow areas. We're not doing
Okay.
the red areas, to
Yeah.
my knowledge.
Okay.
And the reason being, it's gonna be a mix of a full line and a spot repair. So we're not doing like individual spots. We'll be doing the full line in the yellow areas, filling out the
these are the
entire.
worst parts of
Correct, according to what their findings
the
were.
total. It's single-digit percentages of our sewer lines, but I'm just looking at the bang for the buck. Hopefully it's 10 to 20% of our problem I'm just trying to like mentally build a model on what we're.
I feel it, yes, I do feel like this will be. And then I will be having the areas of District 4 that were not properly done, specifically Grand Avenue was not done, that will be included in my proposal when we do the full recon. And any other streets at that time that we feel need to have a full repair in District 4 will be doing. That is also another reason why District 1 was not done at this time, because I will be taking their sewer lining in consideration when we start discussing street.
Green Hill and Glenmore.
Yes, I'm gonna be doing both projects simultaneously, hopefully. So the total cost is, their estimated cost is $891,000, and then they did give, they did give out a percent breakdown in your packet. You'll see that, the opinion of profitable cost. So 892, 226.14, that does include engineering costs, which are calculated as the indirect cost, and then a 5% contingency. So the project that we're approving today is for the $892,226. So,
All right. Any
I
other?
was hoping the bids come in underestimated.
Right, right. We shall see what's going on. Any other questions? Otherwise, Councilmember Qualley?
Hold on just a second for you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2026, accepting the plans and specifications for the 2026 sanitary lining project and to authorize advertising for bids.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, staff, on that one. Okay, item 7E, ordinance amending City Code, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2. City Council establish city council salaries and include council guidelines in Article 3. Officers, employees to address the administrative organization of the city. And we talked about this at the last council meeting and asked staff to kind of tweak a few things. And now we're back with those tweaks. So would you like to kick it off, Jeanette? Just highlight what's been changed.
Certainly. Just in short form, I know we've been through this, reviewing drafts and work sessions, and in regular meetings leading up to this. We completed a full review and public hearing at our last meeting. Direction from council coming out of the last meeting was to make a couple amendments. We wanted to add some language referencing the Code of Conduct policy that the council has adopted. We did indeed do that, so this draft does include that language. We also took direction from council that the wage escalator would incorporate a 2-year look-back period on the COLAs approved versus a 1 year. So we updated that as well. Last but not least, we clarified and simplified some language relating to the special election section. It was a little wordy. It included the statutory language as opposed to just referencing the statute. And I think as we were reading that, it is easy sometimes to get lost in that statutory language when you're a reader on the outside looking in. So to simplify that and make it clearer for a reader, we cut to the chase there a little bit and simplified that paragraph. We also talked about that in a work session prior to give the council an opportunity to ask any questions that they may have had, to seek any further clarification. But what you have before you is a draft that we hope is our final draft. We hope we're ready. If we are recommending council consider adoption of the ordinance this evening. I apologize in advance that this is a very long motion in front of you, but this ordinance does adopt 2 different articles of code, and that's why it's lengthy. We are also asking council to make a separate motion directing staff to publish a summary ordinance. The summary was also included in your packet. The reason for the summary ordinance is that publishing that full ordinance is, very costly by the column inch there. So we do have the authority to publish a summary if agreed upon by the council, so.
Okay. I know we talked about this in the work session as well and drilled down on some details there with you and with our city attorney. So we got some questions answered there as well. And yeah, this has been going on for quite a while, just making sure not in a rush to do this. It doesn't take effect until after the next election. It's entirely possible that a couple of us won't be serving on the council at that time and won't be, won't have any increase in our wages or that kind of thing. So, and as we talked about the last meeting, for those that weren't present, is that you're 20 years here that you do not recall that ever being a raise, that the council receiving a raise. So it's been a number of years, and just trying to get us on par, we're not trying to be the top paid council in the metro or anything like that. These new amounts put us still quite low when it comes to some of our peers and that kind of thing. So
Following the meeting too, we were able to look back into our electronic records and confirm that, at least I can confirm verbally, we certainly haven't seen a pay change since back to 2007. Like, our electronic records don't really exist past then. The fact that we've saved them that long is probably more than we should have, but we have done it anyway because we're paranoid and we like to keep stuff. So
it's been a while.
It's
been a while.
I'd also like to just thank City Attorney Thames here for reviewing the draft at least once. He, reviewed and edited the first draft and then really did a nice job of editing that special election section in particular, because I called him and I said even I was getting lost in the statutory language, and I'm supposed to know that in and out, and I was like, can we please find a way to simplify that so it doesn't feel like it's talking around in a circle? Can we please get to a solid readable? And he had a great idea and came up with a paragraph that I was thrilled with. So I appreciate the effort there.
Great. Thank you, City Attorney Thames.
So can I make a motion?
Wow, of course you can. Of course you can.
A motion to adopt ordinance number 2026-01, amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council to establish council salaries and include general council operating guidelines, and amending Article 3, officers and employees to provide background check authority and address the administrative organization of the city.
All right, I'll second that. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I'll make a motion to direct staff to publish a summary of ordinance number 2026-01.
All right, I'll second that one as well. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously again. Great, nice to have that behind us now. Thank you for your work on that. Staff, I like that we're kind of just giving a gift, so to speak, to people that'll serve in this council for 10, 20 years from now. It's just sort of set it and forget it. There's not gonna need to be, there's some decision-making, but it's gonna be just sort of adjusted as needed over time, so appreciate
I also
your-
think this is gonna make our police department happy, because we really do finally have provisions in there that establish our background check authority for pre-employment checks and for license
Yeah.
checks, so this does some good things beyond just rectifying that. We probably should have revisited our council wage schedule a while ago. So I'm glad we could rectify that situation, but also do some other good things. So-
Yeah, and the code of conduct is solidified that we created as a council 2 or 3 years ago, and that's lock solid now, and I'm glad that we have that as well. Not that we need it, but it'll be good for in the future, I'm sure.
May encourage more people to run too. I don't know if it's gonna put
Right.
people over the threshold, but
Right. Might make a little bit of a difference.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So with that, we'll move on to 8, other business. Go around, Councilmember Newcomer.
Nothing. I'd like to compliment the park board. I attended their meeting, and they put a lot of work into this upcoming bonfire, so they did a good job with that. And then prom is this weekend for the regional area, so Friday night.
Memorial Day weekend.
Is it this Friday or next Friday? It's this Friday.
It's
Yeah.
this Friday.
Wow,
Yeah, it's this Friday. So just
that's unique.
remind everybody to be safe and watch out for our kids that are going to be running around out there, and for
Yeah.
the kids that are out there to be safe as well, for us. That's about it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Feldman.
Nothing from me, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dybek.
No, nothing more. I just kind of, my comments about the lake are just a big concern of mine, and I'm hoping that we can find a solution that will improve the quality of the water, because it just hurts not just the lakeshore owners, but the city and anybody that wants to use the lake, and I'd like to see it be improved, so that's all.
Yeah, it was impactful to hear from Brennan from Birches how their customers comment on it impacts their customers.
Yeah, it affects them, so, yeah, I get it. I understand everybody's comments about it, and I share the concerns about the water quality. I mean, we might disagree on like what's the major cause of it, but I think bottom line is it's the phosphorus. And, if you recall, we used to have phosphorus in our fertilizers because that's what makes things grow fast, and that's what's in the lake, and it makes the algae grow fast, so.
But these
And
last
how
2
much
years.
is that a runoff, what people put on the lawns?
Well, but you can't buy phosphorus fertilizer anymore, at least you're not supposed to be able to buy it. Maybe some people still find it, but, it's the 3 numbers on the fertilizer bag. The last number is now 0, because that used to be
It's
the.
like middle or, yeah.
One of the numbers is
Whatever,
0, because it used to be the phosphorus amount. And so, yeah, there is still bad stuff going into the lake, but there's a lot of bad stuff already in the lake. And once it's in the lake, it's not going anywhere. And so you have to keep it from doing what it likes to do, and that's what alum does. So I'm gonna keep supporting an effort to try to get that done, because I don't see anything else that's gonna.
But these last 2 years have been special in a
Yeah.
bad way. And
Yeah.
it's like 3 years ago, it wasn't nearly this.
No, it wasn't. We'd had like some moments where it seems to be getting better, and then the last couple of years is like really bad. So
I would say right when it's getting unfortunate out there, moments like this right now, this is exactly the moment where I would love to see the Waters Association kicking off a crowdfunding campaign.
well, that's.
And I know it's premature, I do,
So-
but
Yeah, and so here, this was kind of news to me. I hadn't really thought about this, but one of the members, the board members, shared with me that they're not a lake association. They're a Long Lake Waters Association, which is the broader watershed. So it's not just Long Lake.
Right.
It's sort of, everything. It's Holyfield, Wolfsfeld, the other lakes that. So it's not just our lake association,
Right.
and maybe there needs to be sort of a more focused group that is just Long Lake. There's only 30 homes on the lake total or something like that. So it's not like, it's a small amount of people that live on the lake. So they obviously, can't manage the whole cost, but yeah,
Right.
but a fundraiser of some sort, grants of some sort. But, somebody's gonna have to sort of take the reins and kind of, push it. But, and I'll continue to support that. And I'll probably bring it up from time to time, but.
But it sounds like it's a new kind of algae. Is there
No,
anything special about
well,
that? It's
no.
old?
Yeah, the blue-green algae, that's this toxic stuff. I'm not really sure of like when it becomes blue-green algae. The stuff that's on there, that was on there yesterday, it gets,
Oily.
yeah, it's just a film on top. I don't think that's blue-green algae, but it can lead to it. And sort of, and today when it's windy, it kind of churns it up and then you don't see it on the surface anymore, but it's in the water. And I don't know the process when it turns from one kind of algae to another, but any kind of algae is you can significantly reduce with the proper treatments. And so, yeah. And I know we have a small budget, an annual, budget line item for lake quality issues that we probably haven't used the past few years, but, so maybe there could be something like, hey, what if we put 5 years of our budget towards that? And, and then if Orono, and I'm not going to speak for Orono, but they're 2/3 of the lakeshore, so, we're 1/3, and so maybe they could kick in, their share of that, and now you have at least some core funding, and then you do like he said, some sort of crowdsource fundraising and then some grants and maybe even get the lakeshore owners, to kick in something. And there are these lids that some bays on Minnetonka have. I don't know if you know what those are, but they're like their own taxing district. And some people don't like them because they're forced to pay, towards lake improvements that they might not want to be participating in. But it's a taxing district. I don't think we want to go that far for something like this, but I don't even know if we can, but maybe there could be like, hey guys, you guys who live on the lake, you're going to benefit from this. Your property values are probably going to improve, and so I'd be willing to participate in that as a lakeshore owner. But I won't. There's 30, maybe 35 other ones. I don't know what they would be interested in doing. So I don't know. There's a lot of questions like that. But I just feel like it's just such a disappointment that we're here barely into spring and it's already like that, so.
Well, and with Birches too, just fundraising, just think of the opportunities there, if it's
Yeah.
impacting them, they could host events, fundraising type
Sure.
events there and
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, people don't like to look at a blue-green lake.
Right.
Or smell it.
Smell it, yeah.
That's all I had.
All right, just want to mention that during our work session, we had the city administrator's 6-month performance review, and council was very appreciative of the work that our city administrator, Nowicki, has been doing the last 6 months, and lots of accomplishments that she highlighted for us, and anywhere from facilities to bonding, preparing for infrastructure improvements and fire and all the different things, city hall improvements, and so we appreciate your work the last 6 months, and keep it up, and it's been great having you in this new role.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Councilmember Qualley.
Just want to mention that July 25th is going to be the Buckhorn Days Fun Festival. Put that
Wow,
on your calendar.
July 25th?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have professional wrestling or anything?
Yes.
Yeah, what's that?
Yes.
Coming back?
Well, it's not confirmed, but yeah. I think it was
heard it's coming
popular.
back, yeah.
That was a highlight. That was awesome.
That was.
Still asking for council members to participate in that, or?
Or mayor.
Mayor, I think, yeah.
Here.
I'd like to see you get body slammed.
That'd be good. Feldman against me, that'd be kind of a bad.
No, you
bad deal.
against like one of the big professional guys.
Okay, got it,
You
got it.
against
It'd be interesting nonetheless,
Boy,
for
that's
sure.
good.
against Kingpin, I think you could
I like
take
that
it.
idea.
All right, great. We look forward to another great summer event. All right, City Administrator.
I actually have a few updates, but I'm going to let Jeanette go first because she has some interesting information regarding elections, and I think that that is more important right now, so I will
Okay,
finish it off to what she's done.
all right.
Thank you with that. So some very recent, I attended election administration training last Thursday. And the very day before that, some legislation had officially passed to allow cities that have been delegated to administer absentee voting by their counties to opt to either fully participate in absentee voting for the full 46 days prior to Election Day, or to opt to only participate in the 18-day early voting period. The 18-day early voting period involves what was previously known as direct balloting. Essentially, you are filling out a form, we're processing you in the voter registration system. You know, put some labels on some things and you can vote and your ballot goes in a tabulator. The process has some extra steps this year from last year. It is growing in popularity. The absentee voting system that begins 46 days prior to Election Day is the envelope system that involves a chain of envelopes and is a lot more time consuming. Also involves staff members very often assisting voters through every step of their envelope process because the envelopes can be a little rough to handle. I am asking the council to consider supporting me in notifying Hennepin County that we would like to opt for the 18-day early voting period. What does that mean for Long Lake voters? What it means is that they would still have the more popular 18-day before Election Day early voting that many have already chosen. They still would have the ability to vote by mail, which a group certainly does. The less popular absentee balloting envelope system wouldn't be available except within the 18-day period for anyone who wanted to take their ballot home with them and bring it back. I truly believe that being able to focus my efforts on early voting to an 18-day window versus the interruption to general city services in a 46-day period carries weight in a small city like Long Lake. It's funny because I find myself feeling like a failure. Because when the burdens of absentee voting and the activity grows, and this is something that's going to be worse with a general election than it is with a primary. But when the lines get longer and the traffic gets bigger, what you find is that you can't get to your phone calls. And what you find is that you have to work until 8 o'clock at night to get your council packet out. And what you find is when your coworker needs you, you can't be there for your coworker. And what you find is that person who's waiting in line behind 3 other people and all they want to do is get help with a permit or pay their utility bill, they just have to wait behind an early voter because, and even if that takes a half hour, because that's just what it takes in a small city.
Are people voting are the people voting
Yes.
46 days early because they're not going to be around?
No.
They're doing it because they choose to, because they can.
They can do
Because
it
the
whenever
law
they
allows
feel.
them to.
Yeah.
So if we opt into the 18-day period versus the 46-day period, they will still have that envelope system available to them 46 days in advance. They would just be making their applications online and getting their ballots from Hennepin County. Many of them are already doing that in that 46-day period.
Oh, so they'll administer it.
Yep, by mail,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
that's
they really
good.
and truly wanted to, they could actually go down to the courthouse. I also, to be quite forthright, I am putting up a fight. I would like David to beat Goliath just once in our lives as a small city. And I am continuing to communicate to Hennepin County elections that they work so hard and they do a lot for us, but everything about this process is geared towards the larger cities. And again, I cannot say it enough. If we were in Wright County, the county right next door, Long Lake would, cities like Long Lake and Minnetonka Beach and Spring Park and Loretto, we would not be administering absentee voting. The county would not be delegating that to us. The county administers absentee voting. Hennepin County delegates it to its cities.
I'd like to point out one other thing. In the 18 days prior, it's not Monday through Friday. Jeanette can give the details.
Oh, there's 2 Saturdays and a Sunday.
That does include Saturdays, that does include Sundays, and she's the only one that's able to do it. So there are times where she's gonna be working at least 14 hour, maybe the 14 days straight. And it's also not, it's not also, during work hours. Sometimes they require you to be open later. Now, one benefit of us updating our hours last week is you only legally have to allow voters in some situations during, off.
Correct.
Hours, but it does get, and there's a lot of confusion that's happening, and I think that we've all seen in the media in the last couple of years, they're really promoting the idea of coming in early, and so people would come in and they can't put their ballot in the box, and then they get upset, and
What
there's-
percentage do early voting in Long Lake?
It is unique to every election because it in part depends on the dynamics of each election. I can tell you though that in 2024, I think we had 100.
I was thinking 100.
It was like 120 something come in within a matter of days.
Wow.
And I'd never seen anything like it.
Oh,
And most will say they don't
remember
want
when
the
people
lines.
used to go on election
Just
day?
remember-
Yes,
Like,
yes.
I still do. I don't know.
Concepts.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
Concept.
it's a funny anecdote, but it's absolutely true. I was back and forth so fast that poor Amanda here went to the hardware store to get a fan for me to literally just blow on me because I couldn't sit. So I could only stand at the stand-up desk and just zip back and forth between the front desk and occasionally run around and help voters who are having trouble. One thing that's new to the early voting process this year, in addition to some new forms, is that every ballot that's issued to a voter, direct balloting had a different system. At the end of the day, after everybody had left, we'd lock the doors and we would work as a team of 2 in initial ballots and then put them in storage. We can't do that now. 2 people have to initial each ballot as it is handed to a voter. So I may actually have to staff an election judge to stand with me up front and look pretty, just in case someone comes in to early vote. Because we have to have someone to initial a ballot. So I'll have to monitor the flow and keep an eye on things. I'm not worried about the primary. Julie or Amanda will be able to help me for the primary. That will be a lower flow. The governor's race is a different story. And I'm
So
also-
18 days sounds like a pretty reasonable amount of time.
It is. The majority of early voting activity, absentee voting activity, the majority of it does really happen within that 18-day window.
So do it. That's what we should
Yeah,
do.
yeah, I got our support, my support. I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. And plus, it's 19 days, 18 plus 1, right? So
The actual day.
should be plenty unless somebody's on a really extended vacation and.
Then they can vote by mail.
Right,
Do they have
right.
to prove that they're out of town or anything when you
No.
vote?
Not anymore. No. I'm going to also, with the council's permission, of course, I'd like to communicate that selection tomorrow. And then I'm going to continue to voice to them how much I would like them to consider a West Metro or a West Hennepin early voting center in 2028. That's a conversation I'd like to have another day. But I'd like to consider employing a strategy of putting them, and this is a slightly more controversial conversation, but putting them on soft notice of an intent to petition to become non-delegated. And
Does that mean we succeed from the
Wouldn't allow
county?
any, we wouldn't
no,
allow.
nope. That means that I would, that I'm
We're joining.
soft intent.
Jeez.
Basically saying, Medicine Lake, for example, is the one and only non-delegated jurisdiction in Hennepin County.
And what does
They
that
do
mean?
not administer their absentee or early voting at all.
No early
So
voting.
what non-delegated means is putting them on notice that we are requesting the county take back their early voting and absentee voting. And my thought in the soft declaration of intent on the early side of things would be to try to encourage them to be forward-thinking for 2028. I'm not done. I want to start fighting for small cities instead of just like, I'm tired of us not using our voice.
Is there a fee for that when the county takes it over?
No, it's their responsibility to
When did
begin with.
Medicine Lake make that decision?
I'm sorry?
When did Medicine Lake make that decision? Is
I
it-
don't know how long that's been in play.
Why haven't other cities done it?
There actually was a short period years ago, for about 2 years, that Long Lake and Spring Park and a number of small cities were non-delegated. And then they redelegated us.
So in that scenario,
Automatically?
They just made the decision.
Oh,
They can take it back.
What's the mechanic for you to?
Yeah.
The mechanic for me to say take it back
Yeah,
is to send a letter from my city leadership. So what I'm considering and interested in doing would be to declare a soft intent. But that's a conversation.
but so in
for
that
another day.
scenario with Medicine Lake, can the residents of Medicine Lake, in that 18-day period, can they go to their city hall to vote, or they need to do it by,
No.
they can do it by mail though?
Everything is happening by mail or administered by the county for them.
Okay.
Yep.
So they can
It-
go to the
it is-
county to
So
get all
absentee
these.
voting and early voting, the responsibility by statute is technically delegated to the counties. The counties in turn do have the option to delegate to the municipalities. That's why it's called non-delegated. We are a delegated municipality, just like everyone but Medicine Lake. I'm interested in just kind of continuing to push the issue and I keep saying it over and over again. How about that Great Ridgedale Service Center? That'd be a great place for a
Right,
West
right.
Hennepin early voting center.
Yeah.
You are a larger entity by far. You have a giant team. I was sitting there
Yeah.
in elections administration training with a team of 6 presenters and a whole bunch of other elections administration staff on board from Hennepin County, and that was about 3 to 4 times the number of staff we have, just in that chat room. And that's nothing compared to the amount of temporary staff that I know they hire, and I am so glad that they have that, and I'm so glad that they have those resources, but we don't and we never will.
So Amanda, when you go to the meetings with some of the local municipalities, are they saying the same thing?
I will say that it's on my agenda. I'll be meeting with the administrator from Hennepin County, and I'm going to mention to them, because I've seen firsthand, like Jeanette was saying, sitting up front, I can see, and it's not just what it's doing to our staff. It is what it's doing to our residents that do come into City Hall
Yes.
to handle day-to-day business for someone, because doing an absentee ballot takes a lot of time, especially because we're trying to be very professional, very accurate. Jeanette's making sure that all the steps are appropriate, that there is no issues, nobody's leaving with their ballot, and so it's a very one-on-one ordeal. It's when somebody's early voting, it has to be done very carefully, and there cannot be any
Or it's
mistakes.
challenged?
Correct. And
I could just walk away from that for the record. I could just not pay attention to it. My choice is to take the time to give clear instruction so that their ballots aren't rejected. That's my choice.
and that we don't, and that no one walks away and brings it home or something.
Yeah.
So it does cause a lot of turmoil to our residents that are just trying to get a permit or just trying to do something else. And because we're so small,
How big is Medicine Lake?
I don't know.
So it's smaller.
And it's possible they don't even have a city hall. Maybe that's part of why they're non-delegated. I don't know anything about Medicine Lake. I don't know what the dynamic is. So, but
This
regardless,
first thing, step one.
I'm just
Yeah.
feeling like I'm not wanting to go down without a fight for small cities. And maybe I'm alone out there.
I mean, I definitely get the feelings of the neighboring small cities, just to see if there's one David or if there's 10 Davids.
Jeanette's been in contact with them.
I've been
Yeah.
having some conversations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Strength in numbers, and I think every one of our, whether county commissioner, state representative, state senator that's been standing here, I think we brought this up with all three of them, maybe for sure two of them, and voiced our concerns, and including with our county commissioner and mentioning Ridgedale's. Yeah, it seemed like a good concept to get your driver's license. You can't go to every city hall to get your driver's license. You gotta go to Ridgedale or Southdale, whatever, so. some
Delightfully
similarities
underutilized
there.
community room there.
But if you want to vote on election day, Jeanette is here for you.
Yes, and along other great election judges.
Yes.
Yes,
Just
yeah.
the efficiency
But
is
it-
just nonsensical.
Right, right. But if you're out of town or have a military or whatever, yeah, there'll still be options for that, absolutely. And just not every day walking in here for,
And you
At
can
any
vote
time.
by
60
mail
days.
if you're out of
Yeah.
town.
yeah. All right, good. I think you've got unanimous support here, so proceed with that and applying some pressure, and we'll see where that takes us. And yeah, it'd be great if you can work with neighboring city clerks to partner with them and strengthen numbers.
Thank you.
Great. All right, now on some lighter topic.
Yeah, it's actually very light and it'll be very quick. I wanted to first start out by thanking council today for approving the salary increase for future council. I feel like it was something that we have mentioned was overlooked in the past, and I'm glad that we're looking out for our future and being responsible and making a decision now that doesn't even affect you, but will affect future councils. And I think it says a lot about our city, and I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully it does encourage people to continue to run for these offices, because I know I've been with you in all my meetings, as we talked about. I know how much time really goes into city council and to being a mayor, and I appreciate it. And I think it's important that you guys you're not paid for what you're doing anywhere near. You're not doing it for the money, but I do appreciate that small token.
Amanda?
I'm glad that that was approved today. I also wanted to let council know today that the Highway 12 access, the emergency gate, has been completely restored. If you recall, the electric mechanism was broken because Long Lake, we don't have any need for that gate. It was given to us many years ago when the freeway was put in, and so at that, we had kind of discussed as a council the cost affiliated with trying to get the electrical mechanism back up and working for our emergency responders, and we felt like it was important for our citizens to allow our emergency responders to have that access. And because we did that, both Hennepin County, MnDOT, Wayzata, and I believe Orono, they also felt the same way and have offered to participate in the repair of that. And so I was there. We had our Shoreline Fire Department came, and they were very excited about this improvement. They tested it out. We tested it a couple different times, made sure everything worked. So I'm happy. I think that this would be a really good opportunity for neighboring communities. Like I said, it doesn't really benefit us as a Long Lake resident, but I do think it's neighborly for having that emergency response for,
Yeah,
Shoreline.
benefits those emergency response police and fire that can use that access to get to farther points away from Long Lake, right? It's not
Absolutely, yes.
Long Lake that uses it, it's them that gets access to Orono and other areas. Wasn't that, I'm trying to remember that, wasn't that put in there when it was determined that they couldn't have an exit on Willow from 12? And so they wanted to have something that was
Well,
close.
that was the initial plan, but I think that had already been in place for about 10 years or so. Like the freeway was already built.
Right.
And then it's put in.
But, yeah, when they put the
Yeah, there was-
bypass in, I mean, I thought at one time there was some discussion about having an
Emergency access
yeah,
at Willow.
at Willow.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And when that wasn't gonna work because there just wasn't enough room, that then was put in there so that it could be accessed by police and fire to get to the outer, to the west and east ends of Long Lake and beyond. So.
Makes sense, because otherwise they'd have to go all the way up to where it is County Road 6 to
Yeah,
access
yeah.
it, or go down back to,
Yeah.
Back to Wayzata.
It's in Long Lake, but it's not necessarily for Long Lake residents. I mean,
Yeah.
it's for those who live east and west of us, so.
I was working with the Shoreline Fire Department. For those that don't know, I'm speaking of the JPA, the Orono Long Lake Fire Department, Shoreline. I worked with their chief and one of the police officers from Wayzata. And there is actually going to be a next step, because MnDOT was with us when we were testing the gate, and both of those emergency responders had mentioned that they're also now going to be looking at widening it, because it is used so often by emergency responders and for turnarounds. And if you also recall, about 2 years ago, there was a major issue here on the freeway, and they had no way to get vehicles that were commuting from neighboring cities off of the freeway. And so they were able to direct them through that gate. Whereas had they not had that gate, those commuters would have been sitting there for a very long time until.
did
So-
they take the concrete barriers off, or? how
Yeah,
did-
can you
There's
get,
an opening.
can you get
Widen those.
eastbound from there? So, yeah, there is an opening. in
But
the-
it's not, it's a
Looking at widening it.
tighter open,
Think
it's
like
too
fire
tight for a fire truck.
Yeah, so I was able to talk to our Wayzata police chief today. She was over the moon and very
west or
appreciative
eastbound.
that we got this done. And I wanted to thank council for all your support in getting this done. Like I mentioned, we could have easily just had it continue to be manual, which serves the purpose of our public works, which we also plow. We plow that area. And a manual would have worked just fine, but we did feel it was important for emergency responses to get the electrical up and running properly, so all emergency responders would be able to benefit. And the last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to thank both Anita Secord and Lorene Carlson. I had the opportunity to meet with them. They invited me when they were planting last week. They invited me to come and see what they've done. We kind of brainstormed ideas. As you all know, when you start getting into ideas, you have to be careful because they can get very grand. But it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking to both of them and to see all the hard work and dedication that they are volunteering their time doing for our community. They are the only 2 members right now of our garden club, and you wouldn't know it by what a beautiful job they did. So I'm just going to quickly show a few pictures. These are the planters that are in the BP lot. I did hint to them that Mandy is not a huge fan of them, and we might need to look at something different in the future that adds more aesthetics, but they have made them beautiful, and I appreciate that. The next one here is one of our monuments. This is what our residents see when they come into our city, and I think it's very important to show the beauty of our city. I will say that Public Works, and I will make a note that it gets done, will be adding, we did buy mulch, we bought quite a bit of mulch, so they will be adding mulch to this area as well. And this is a closer up picture of the BP lot. And
Well, luckily it got rain.
It did, I know, and that was one thing, there was a little bit of a miscommunication when they were there. They were there working very hard on Friday, and she's like, can someone come and water it? I'm thinking, I don't think I even have Public Works here right now, but they're beautiful. So we were able to get rain this weekend, and I have let Public Works know to add that to their watering schedule. So I'm very excited, and it definitely put a bug in me to, I've got a few ideas to run by Sean at tomorrow's meeting, which I'm sure he'll love.
Good.
So, yes, once again, thank you to the Garden Club. I truly appreciate your hard work and dedication and the volunteerism.
Yeah, so do we. It's nice,
Yeah.
nice look. All right. City Attorney Thames, anything from you by chance? Good
Oh,
to
I
see
can't
you.
compete with that, man.
Pictures.
Right. All right, last call. Otherwise, next meeting is, and of course, city offices are closed on Memorial Day. Reminder about those two events occurring on Memorial Day morning. Otherwise, Tuesday, June 2nd, probably work session and city council meeting. All right, so if there's no objection, I'll adjourn the meeting by general consent. Hearing none, meeting's adjourned at 8:30 PM.
It was a little longer than usual.
I know.
That's why I made the motion.
I know, you must have like something to watch on TV.
The gate, is just curious the mechanics of how we got that, so they did the highway